I'm Mike Kelzer. Growing up in my family's pharmacy, life moved fast. There was always something to do, someone to help. But the moments that meant the most to me as I think back were the conversations my dad and I would have about business and life itself. We'd get so absorbed. We'd talk for an hour and it would seem like 15 minutes. This podcast is my way of keeping those memories alive. There's no scripts, no outlines, no fluff, no hidden agendas. It's just real honest talk about the business of pharmacy and sometimes a little more. Let's dive in. Saul, introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hi, everybody. Saul Marquez with the Outcomes Rocket, where we're all about improving healthcare outcomes and business success for today's healthcare leaders as well as patients.
Saul, what might a non-healthcare marketer do in the healthcare marketing arena that is a trial or a waste of time? What do you think they might presuppose and it was incorrect because healthcare doesn't do it that way?
One thing that I heard once, and I subscribe to it, Dr. Tracy Gapin from the Gapin Institute, awesome guy. He says, one size fails all. And I subscribed to that, and I told him I'd steal it. He's like, that's awesome, take it.
There you go, right. I want you to quote me on something, Saul, and I want you to use my name every time.
Mike, I will, no doubt. One size fails all. And, you know, it's what happens when you get somebody into this business and you expect them to understand what unfair reimbursement practices are or what clawbacks and DIR fees are. You know, like you have to sit there and talk to them about all these details, where if you're an insider, you understand things happening today and the challenges they cause for businesses. The challenge happens when you have to explain them your whole business and They still don't understand that's a 6 to 12 month sales cycle.
I never thought about that, Saul, for marketing. I thought of it for two things. One is we used to have an accountant, just a local person. This is before the internet was real hot and able and popular to do accounting and things. And I'd spend like a half hour a month explaining to them something like how we had no way in hell to know what was going to get taken out of our back pocket 7 months later with the DIRs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I was talking to a guest one time and we were joking about being in front of the court and I'm getting sued for something. And I would say, Judge, the reason why this happened is because we only wanted to lose 500 instead of 1,000, you know, and the judge would say, well, you mean gain 500 instead of 1,000. It's like, no, we just didn't want to lose the full 1,000. We only wanted to be $500 in the hole with this kind of transaction or something. And they just wouldn't get it.
And that's the issue. So do you want to start from scratch or do you want somebody that could enter midstream with you to help you solve the problems that you have? Because look, when you're dealing with all of the headwinds, you know, and the headwinds come in a lot of forms, as you all know, Mike. You know, I've had a chance to listen to a couple of your shows, and you have to truly understand and empathize. Like, what does reduced autonomy of patient care do to you and your ability to add value to the people that show up to your store? If somebody understands that, they're automatically going to help you start putting together campaigns that will quickly engage, that will resonate. I can't explain it another way than that. Enter midstream with me.
I was sitting with a friend in a grocery store yesterday, I guess, and he said, what would you have done differently, 10 years ago? I said, I might reduce staff, but here's the problem. The average company would take their business and they would shave off the bottom 20%. And they'd say, we're going to focus on this part and we're going to raise the prices here. We're going to keep our staff at this. Here's what we want. Here's the structure. It's like pharmacists, that's breaking contracts. You can't say you're going to take only 20% of this PBM's business. You're going to take it all and you're going to be staffed for all of it. Yet you're not going to make money on it. And if you say the whole PBM's going to go away, now you've lost a third of your business overnight. And it's a different business. And if you came into me, Saul, without a healthcare focus, they'd say, Mike, we're going to we're going to do this and this, and we're going to, shave off that bottom 20% and do, I'm like, get out of here. It's like, and if not, I got to explain it to you for an hour and then I got to reset your thinking pattern, and it just doesn't work.
You're totally right. And it's tough, man. Like, it's tough out there. And by the way, like, pharmacists are a fabric of our community. What your pharmacist does for you is so critical to your overall health. The amount of data that exists that you guys know about the community, man, and how that could feed into care pathways at the provider level, or if only the primary care physician knew what you know and your team knows, like, that would lead to an optimized care experience. I think there's some people and actually, folks out there that are starting to include pharmacy as part of like the journey, the care journey, but I feel like completely under leveraged right now.
We've got access to patient data, and of course it would be cleaned and HIPAA free and all that kind of stuff. So we've got a lot of wild frontier in that area, but sometimes you wonder if you want to increase business for the afternoon or just lock the door because you don't want the wrong business to walk in with the wrong PBM and things like that. Saw people talk about the marketing story. Oh, we didn't have a story. And it's like, really? You might not think this, but you've got Apple, and you've got Amazon. All right. You don't think they have a story? All right. Well, what is that feeling versus Nokia? I mean, it's like, oh, I guess I do know that, Jobs started in his garage, and I guess that is a story. It wasn't like, save the world story, but it's that story that people pick up on.
100%. There's two quotes that I really like. One of them is John D. Rockefeller. He said, next to doing the right thing, the most important thing is to let people know that you're doing the right thing. And then the second one that I always love to pair, because I love to pair these two quotes, it's Bill Gates. He said, if I was down to my last dollar, I would spend it on public relations. And that's earned media. And it's all about putting it out there so that people know the story. If you're not telling your story, somebody else is. And more than likely, somebody else isn't. I tell my kids now, we're in a remarkable time because there's no middleman. There's no middleman for the book you want to publish or the movie you want to put out or the press release and things like that. As we're talking here now, I'm wondering what is missed by not having a middleman. If you can get a hold of a press release and put out the same exact social post, but now you said, look what somebody said about me, or the customer testimonial, that distribution's getting out there, but it's a different twist to it. Yeah, it is. It gives you credibility, right? Like, that's what it's about. It's about credibility, and people need to know that they can trust you. PR is great because you get other outlets to tell your story for you. And then all of a sudden, when you start showing up in different articles all over the place, the assumption is this person knows what they're doing and they're having success, and you become de-risked.
De-risked.
Yeah. So there's always a risk. If you're going to buy something, why should I buy from them?
My friend does plastic inventions on Amazon, whether it's a bird feeder or hanging up these tools, these combi tools. You got a brush and the weed cutter and all that kind of stuff.
Those are cool.
A little attachment he puts on there to hang it up. And some other countries come in and steal his ideas, and he's always in these Amazon lawsuits and stuff with them. And I don't come in with a huge amount of wisdom, but I just say, Dave, right now you can't fight this and you can't fight that, and maybe you can't fight on price, but get as many reviews as you can. And I said, I don't even care if they're good reviews, but when I go on Amazon and I see somebody has 3 reviews versus somebody who has
big time
180 reviews, even if they're crap reviews, I know people are giving them attention and at least giving them a shot. I'm not a big believer in, any press is good press, but there's something to that about there's talk going on. And so maybe I want to give that place a shot too.
Absolutely. Well said. And the reviews, the reviews are critical. If you could show that you are a credible source, the reviews, you're spot on, Mike. Like, that's a plus. And the people's ratings and reviews, I'll tell you, go look at your competitors' ratings and reviews. I would tell you that that's a gold mine. And it's a gold mine because you'll see what they're doing well and things that people like about their service delivery. It might be holes in your offering, but you'll also see where they're dropping the ball. And this will be fuel to help you with campaigns, but also in arming up your strengths against the competition.
Saul, that's a great idea because there's some stuff that people may not give you kudos for. Like you might not see somebody say, boy, that Mike does a damn good job of keeping his back sidewalk clean in the winter or something like that. You don't think about it really. You do it, but wait till you see the negative review from somebody else because people always bitch. They're not going to praise you for a good sidewalk. Right. They're going to bitch about an icy sidewalk. Now it's like, oh, I care for the little old ladies that come in and I care about the neighborhood. All those ideas that come to you from somebody else.
Hell yeah. And then the next thing you know, you take a picture of all the snow and your clean walkway.
Sure.
And you make that one of your pictures on Google reviews.
Absolutely. Now, all this is good. Now, the problem is I'm talking snow, and we got to back up a little bit here. I'm talking snow to a guy who's sitting in Puerto Rico.
That's fair.
Who is there on his own volition as a goal to have a business like this. So we're going to back up a bit here. So, looking at your profile, you're in the med space, Stryker and Medtronic and all this kind of stuff. I'm probably cutting to the chase here, but you said, I want my own freedom. I want to do what I want to do, go where I want to go. Tell me the genesis of all this.
I was in the corporate world for 18 years, and I remember my heart was beating out of my chest. My palms were super sweaty. I was in San Diego at the time, and I was making the phone call. I was so nervous. To this point, Mike, this is what I've been doing my whole career. Like, I was climbing the ladder. I was an executive at a med device company. And the night before, I was talking to my wife, and she knew I was frustrated. And like many of the people listening, I got tired of my good ideas being put on the shelf. I got tired of having to work through a bunch of red tape. And I said, I'm ready to do this. She grabs my hand, Mike. She says, I'm ready to, let's do it. Like, we're going to do this together.
This is before any foray into marketing, or had you already had a base and now it was time to jump?
I've always been in sales and marketing. So the 17 years that I was doing it, it was always sales and marketing.
Building your own client base.
Correct. I was doing it for other companies. And I made the call, and that was it, the leap of faith to go start my own thing.
And the call was to your company and put in your notice?
To my boss for the two-week notice, yeah. And I had the best boss, and it was the best company. Having those 17 and a half years of experience was an amazing foundation, like a great grooming to be a business owner. Like all the things that we did all the way up to like I was a sales rep all the way up to an executive, and all of the frameworks, all of the quarterly business reviews, the 9 blocks to review talent, all that stuff, man, like structure that today is serving us well, that's helping us scale and grow. But it's scary when you make the jump, when you go from being an employee to having your own thing. But I knew that I was ready, and my mission had changed. It went from climbing the ladder to, we want to help 5,000 healthcare businesses succeed because they deserve it. And if you're doing something to improve our world through improving our healthcare, you should be successful. And the statistics are terrible. 50% of all businesses fail within 5 years, and 97% of all businesses fail within 10 years. And we believe as a company that if you're improving healthcare, you should succeed. Your business should succeed. And that's why we're doing what we do now.
Yeah, that's an interesting take, that you would think that the market is set up. And of course, got a ton of pharmacists listening that are saying, how does that math work out? But you would think that, yes, if you're succeeding in healthcare and people are getting better, you're adding value to it, then you should be remunerated for that. I guess the tricky thing with the pharmacy is you've got holes in the market. You've got people not adding value, skimming things off. Well, not skimming it off, like tipping it over and shaking it off, with the PBMs and things like that. But in general, yes, if you've got somebody in healthcare across the board, it's like one thing if you're like building widgets and you say, I've got a better widget. And you don't know if it's needed. You don't know if it's going to break the market, all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't take a rocket scientist to say, I'm improving health. We should get paid for this. And that makes a hell of a lot of sense.
A hell of a lot of sense. Healthcare oftentimes doesn't make business sense. You have to understand operations in order to make it work, which is part of kind of going back to your initial question around a non-healthcare marketing partner, because it doesn't make healthcare sense. The way that it works, understanding how it works is critical in order to succeed. And so that's why some tech companies that come in thinking they're going to be super clever with technology and then they fail because they don't understand how it works. Step one is understand how it works in order to be successful. And that's why what we do, Mike, we help businesses in this space be successful. And sometimes it's just that initial review to help you get your strategy in line. It's a one and done. Oftentimes we engage and we become an extension of the team and an ongoing partner, and everybody needs something different.
So Saul, let me get this straight. You call your boss and you don't have any clients yet that you've been putting in some time with on Saturdays, or you've been writing some thought sheets up or things like that. You called your boss cold to jump into this?
So I had conversations with people with the anticipation that I was going to do this.
Gotcha. So you had your minimum viable product. You've talked to people. You don't have an order in hand, but you knew there was a need out there.
Yeah, I did. And the reason why I decided marketing services is because of the data. At that point, I had interviewed about 1,500 people.
Back up, Saul. On your podcast?
On my podcast.
I got to back up now. So I know you said you did your podcast, but you're saying that you had this podcast going
the whole time.
You had that going the whole time.
Yes.
You were talking to these people all the time.
All the time. When
did the podcast start? And did you feel you had the clearance to do that, or did you need permission or whatever?
Great questions. So the reason I did the podcast is actually when I was growing up and in school and in college, I did speech and debates. I always was a fan of communications. I studied leadership. And my last semester of school, I was in Europe. And my goal was to go and interview a bunch of leaders. And I didn't do it. I actually ended up just traveling to a bunch of countries and I partied.
Of course.
It was so much fun, man. I have no regrets. Yeah, it was awesome. But I still had that unfinished business, which I don't do well with. I finish things. So fast forward, I said, man, now's the time. And I got into a groove with what I was doing. I was good at it. And I started doing more things to add value to my customers and the industry. So I started the podcast and I started interviewing leaders, and that turned into a phenomenal lead source for me while I was a leader at Medtronic.
Saul, besides the benevolence that you offered it, was it helping your bottom line? Were these people customers or anything?
Well, yeah, like they started becoming my customers at Medtronic. So it was the last company that I was at.
What is Medtronic?
It's a medical device company. They manufacture and distribute medical devices that help with various therapies, from heart conditions to spinal issues to neurovascular complications, you name it.
You had a pretty broad spectrum across the Medtronic line.
Yeah. So we did that and it worked, and actually I had a chat with my boss's boss at the time when I first started it. And actually, Mike, at that time, I was just being very open, right? Very candid. And I was expecting him to say, hey, you know what? That's ridiculous. You can't do this. You're working here. But instead, he said, no, actually, that's really cool, man. If you get this to be something, maybe we'll even sponsor it. That's what he said.
Wow.
My boss's boss at the time.
How many years were you doing the podcast before you jumped?
It was 6 years.
Wow. And what year did that start?
So it was '07. Or no, wait a minute. I got to look on my LinkedIn. I don't even remember, man. It's been so long.
I got it here. Hold on. Hold on. Let me look here. So the Rocket, the podcast, 2016.
There you go. 2016. When you've been doing it so long, you kind of like forget dates.
Yeah, it's like merit. We celebrated our 33rd anniversary. It feels like 100 years. In a good way, brother.
You cracked me out.
So 6 years before you jump, you started the podcast.
Yeah.
Wow. Did you feel like it was helping your bottom line financially?
I'll tell you what, the podcast was funded by me, right? Like I was paying for it. So like for the first 3 years, it cost me money. But I didn't see it that way. For me, it like I was having a blast creating awesome content. My goal, going back to what we talked about, my strategy and goal was to be a healthcare thought leader and an influencer that was on the map. That was my North Star.
Saul, that is really something because there's so many people that have excuses. I can't do this. I'm not going to have permission from the boss. And, here we are in a time where there's no middle people like we talked about. And I think people create the middlemen in their head so they don't have to take that step.
Exactly.
Did it help you financially, though? Were these people potential customers and things like that?
It helped me close deals at my job. Oh, yeah. Yes. I create relationships and networks that help people. And so that led to opportunities to, help my company where I was working and growing. They did so much for me. I also did a lot for them. So it was a great thing.
Right.
It still is a great thing.
That is a really cool story. Who is it? Seth Godin. That's his thing, Be important where you are. Be the king of where you are and offer this to your company and things like that. So what a great lesson right there of pushing it when most people would make excuses.
I had a lot of people that said, dude, why are you doing this? The company's not even paying for it. I'm like, dude, the company's giving me so much. Like, what I can do is be my best and do my best and add value. Like, that's it. I love it. So guess what? I became very valuable, very indispensable. I was surrounded by a great leadership team that saw that. I was leading a division. I was an executive at the company. I was rewarded for it, man. Even though it wasn't like a solid line, it was a dotted line to growth. And to this day, anybody, I'll share with anybody listening, if you're clear with your strategy and you're clear about your goals, that's the first step. Then you look at what's available. Podcasting, for example, we design a podcasting program for businesses to help grow. And the program is essentially designed to attract your ideal customers so you could create relationships and grow your business. And I have customers that are like through the roof on the stuff that we're doing for them because of the relationships they're able to create. Instead of having to call and spam people and sell them stuff, you're calling them to add value to have them on your show. Like, Mike, you and I, our relationship's not going to be the same as it was before because you just helped me, right? You gave me a platform to talk about what I do, what my business does. You gave me a platform to add value to your people. And if I did so successfully, I'm going to be different. Like, our relationship transforms after this podcast.
I've been in some service groups, usually it's just for a nice lunch once a week, but some of the groups and they say, or church group, whatever, school groups. And they say, when someone joins, the way to get them really in the group is try to get them on a committee right away. Get them putting some skin in the game and then they feel committed to it and so on. Mm-hmm. And just a shout out to podcasting, Saul, with this, when you had to have a guest on the show, there's like 12 contact points by the time you say, hey, okay, you got this, the invitation, then you do this and you send it to them and then, hey, how'd you like this? It builds familiarity. It builds trust that you're going to be the guy that shows up when you say you're going to show up. I mean, there's a million things that grows, and that's just podcasting. Now throw a ton of different stuff in there, and it builds that relationship you're not going to get from many other things.
Totally. And 100%, Mike, you nailed it, right? Those touch points through the process, the value add. In today's age, we've talked about this, digital. There's the opportunities to create relationships exist in person. They're the strongest. So I would say in healthcare, there's nothing stronger than in person, going to conferences, meeting your customers where they are. But I would tell you that one of the best second to in-person you can get is podcasting. And I'll share a couple stats. Instagram, 2 seconds, you got their attention. An email, 1 second to 3 seconds, you've got their attention. A TV ad, 10 seconds. A podcast, the average is 14 minutes. So not only is this true with your audience, but this is true with the person that you're doing that episode with.
Absolutely.
When you're building a podcast, most people get it wrong. See, most people think that they're building an audience. And that's true. But if you're a business, if you're a B2B business or a B2C business, and you're building a business, then the number one thing you could be doing with your podcast is attracting the right type of customer to be your guest on that podcast. And let's just say you have a B2C business where you service consumers. You just got to take one step back and realize that that consumer has an employer. So like if you're a pharmacist, you start interviewing local employers and reach out to the employers, get them to know you, build your podcast by interviewing local employers. Boom. Next thing you know, you got this new flow of people coming to you because you just became buddies with the CEO of that company. That's the way you succeed. The podcast funnel has two sides, the listener and the guest. You will make money by building your business through your podcast by focusing that funnel on your guest.
Saul, what better way to get somebody on your side than to say, I want you to talk about yourself for a half hour or 20 minutes, whatever it is. And for our listeners, the reason we're talking this is I know, Saul, this is one of your services. Outcomes Rocket is your podcast, but also, is it fair to say that's the name of your overall?
It's the agency as well.
It's the agency. So Saul, you help healthcare people all the way from a single dentist to bigger companies. And it's doing these things, but one in particular is the podcast. And that's why we're giving some time to this, because we like podcasts, but also this is a service you offer.
Correct. Yeah, it's one of the many services we offer. We work with businesses that are in healthcare, whether it's pharmacists, physicians, healthcare companies that are doing $1 million or more in business, or if they've raised $5 million or more. If they're not past the $1 million mark, they've raised the money and they have support for growth. That's our sweet spot. If they want to grow, whether it's podcasting or earned media or paid, we do all of it. We offer a 20-minute, no charge session, and we literally will sit with you for 20 minutes at no cost. outcomesrocket.com/grow. We invite anybody that fits that category to reach out to us because we want to learn and grow. And if you don't hit that category, it's all good. Check out our site for content. It's the same, outcomesrocket.com/grow.
On the podcast, I'm kind of an old fart. I'm doing okay financially. I don't have to really pull much out of this. I'm not looking for customers from this. In theory, I could be talking to somebody who would be a sponsor of the show, I suppose. But you don't need international and national exposure for things. You can have a podcast, and I've heard it before. You could be a real estate agent, and let's say business real estate. You could have those businesses on your show, and then somewhere along that 15-minute show, you're talking about what their expansion plans are.
It's such a great relationship builder. So if you're looking for a way to expand your network and your relationships, podcasting is definitely it. I would definitely support it.
Even if you had those 100 potential customers, and you alluded to it, you don't need a listener. This could go on Margaret's sound machine at night, to put her to sleep. It's good to have some listeners, but you're building that relationship with your guests. That's a huge part of it.
It is. And look, that's a great point. You know, the fact that your wife listens to your show to go to sleep, Mike. When you first said, my wife listens to my podcast, I was like, wow. I'm like, my wife would never listen to my podcast. She's like, man, I don't need to hear that shit. I hear it enough.
No, I don't get her. Listen, at the beginning, I put it on in the car. We'd be driving someplace and she'd ask, and now I wouldn't put her through that now.
I'm glad. You're a smart man. So this is what we say, to your point, like, downloads are vanity, contacts and contracts are sanity. That is a mantra that we have internally and that we share with our customers, because we build things that help grow your business. And so we're pretty pragmatic about the things that we do. And the number one rule to growing business is adding value. And by the way, the best way to add value is in ways that are not typical, actually, where you're actually flipping a paradigm, much like I'm telling you, you know, you're building an audience, but your important person is the guest. And most people honestly don't do that.
People listening might say, well, you're kind of building this up and the people are going to get like 3 listeners. I'm like, I wouldn't hide that. If I go to a dentist or, you know, pharmacist or something like that, and I'm talking to them about their podcast, I'm like, I don't care if you get put on Margaret's sound machine. It's like, you're going to get a podcast that we talked about it earlier, that you are important enough to be on a podcast. You know, somebody wanted to talk to you for a half hour. Maybe you have something that I want to listen to. And then you chop this stuff up, you get it onto the social media. This person calls up their local reporter and says, hey, I'd like to talk to you about this. And by the way, in my little byline there, put as heard on the such and such podcast. There's nothing embarrassing about having 3 listeners to something. That's what it's about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to your point, Mike, you know, put it out there, put it on your other channels, put it on your website, on your social media, on your email, put it at the bottom of your proposals, and share it with the community. Because people, in today's information age, people, when they show up to you, most of the time today, they're already ready to make a decision. They're ready to decide if they're going to work with you or not. And the way you help them out is you put content out there for them to get to know you.
In the old days, and I'm aging myself with phone books now, but they would say that you don't advertise your business in the phone book. It's there, but what you're doing is when someone's going down with their finger looking for a plumber, they're stopping at the person that they have some trust in, some knowledge of. That comes from the podcast. It comes from this kind of stuff. When they've gone to make the decision, when they're looking up your number to make decision or sitting at their desktop typing your website in, they're only doing that because they think, on a negative side, they think you're going to be the one that's maybe going to screw them the least. And on a positive side, maybe you're going to be the one that helps them the most. But it's a trust thing. Saul, I know that one of the pillars you talk about is having a strategy. Why is that important?
It really is. There was a time before I was in medical devices. There was a time when I really wanted to get in. I was actually a history major in college. I studied classical humanities, and that's the Greek and Roman history. And I wanted to get into med device. I was applying everywhere, and I had put in like 50 applications. One day, I remember getting a phone call from a guy in Florida who ran a business in Florida in medical devices. The company was Stryker. And he called me. It was my opportunity. And when I took that call, I was ready to take it. I knew exactly what my value was, and I knew how to articulate it. And 6 months later, I went to go do my dream job. I got the opportunity. And that's because I was clear about what I wanted. And I was ready. And the question is, will you be ready when your opportunity shows up? And I will tell you is the way you do that is you prepare by being clear about your strategy, by understanding your objective, and having that North Star so clear that when you start looking at all of the options that you have, you're going to be clear on, is it going to keep me on target or is it going to get me off target? And you're going to be unstoppable. And so my advice and my call to action for everybody is be clear and be ready, because your opportunity will come. And when that opportunity comes, be ready and take advantage of it.
Saul, you and I talked this podcast. It's like, I've always said mission statements are a bunch of whitey, cloudy stuff. But this show, it's the business of pharmacy. There's a million ways you can take it, though. I took it to real conversations. I could have taken it to an instructional podcast. I could have taken it to being always in the know, the news podcast. I could have done a lot of things in the pharmacy business one. If you don't know what direction you're going, you can pick up a lot of crap that's just keeping you busy, but it's not getting any closer to where you want to go. So sometimes it's, if you don't have that goal, you don't know where you're going, and you don't know what stuff you should say no to.
Amen. You're spot on. And that's really the core of it. Get clear, know what it is, know what your options are, and be ready. That's a belief that I have inside of me that I hold dear. And the way you make that happen is not to be a drifter, to be very clear about what you want.
So Saul, we want people to hop on your site. Give us that site again.
It's outcomesrocket.com/grow.
What books are maybe people going to go to online that talk about some of this North Star goal setting, things like that? It's such an important topic in this noisy world. You don't focus, you're not going to get there. What are some places in a general sense that they can go to?
One of my favorite books is True North by Bill George. He's one of the former CEOs of Medtronic. And that book is amazing, actually. It's one of the core ones that I love, where in that book, True North, he talks about how experiences in your life or experiences that have happened in the world and how they impacted your life are the checkpoints that define where you go from there. The reason behind the things that you do and, the why behind you do it. And so that's a really good one. One that is on habits that I think is crucial is a book by Darren Hardy called The Compound Effect. The Compound Effect is one of my favorite books. He talks about how seemingly insignificant things that you do in your life over time will make a huge difference in your success or failure. So those are two of my favorite books. We're often out there sharing our knowledge, outcomesrocket.com/grow. If you go to that website, you'll see the media room on our website. So we're always putting stuff out there to help.
I would say for any of my pharmacy brothers and sisters listening, it's like, if they don't think they have much to offer, it's like, go on your site and copy the damn thing. Instead of a article on, giving away something on marketing, they can write something up about suntan lotion. They should be doing the same damn thing, talking to a local reporter and getting that kind of flair to it. So you're putting your money where your mouth is, and you're putting your practice right out for people to see that they can repeat that, but in their own field. So Saul, golly, great talking to you. Fun. I'm a pharmacist, but I'm really just a secret marketing guy. That's all I really care about. So these are the best conversations to have. I know you're busy. Our listeners appreciate it. I appreciate it. And I look forward to keeping in touch.
Likewise, Mike. True pleasure.
You've been listening to the Business of Pharmacy podcast with me, your host, Mike Kelzer. Please subscribe for all future episodes.